In just a minute, I'm going to tell you about a crime so horrific that you may actually need to emotionally prepare yourself. What a teenage couple did to one defenseless 18-year-old girl will make you question humanity and the justice system that we are all supposed to look for. If you have kids in the room, you might want to ask them to leave for just a second. I'm going to tell you a story about what happened Friday in a rural town in southwestern Ohio. Two teenagers, they broke into a house and they hid in the basement. Their plan was to get up the next morning and steal the homeowner's car, but it didn't work out. So they did something much, much worse. After realizing the only adult in the house had left for work, the two went upstairs and found an 18-year-old girl sleeping. They woke her up. Then, for the next 6 hours, they tortured her. They used a baseball bat. They shaved off all of her hair. They doused her with water, made her walk barefoot in the snow. Despite her pleas that she had just had brain surgery, they repeatedly hit her over the head. By the way, she's disabled. The girl's mother found her, bloodied, bruised, helpless. Later that night, teenagers who did it were found minutes later in the woods nearby. They're being charged now. If they were being charged as adults, they'd only face 8 to 28 years in prison, but they're not being charged as adults. If it were up to me, these two dirtbags would never see the light of day again. Richard Jones is the sheriff of Ohio's Butler County, and Wendy Murphy is a law professor at the New England School of Law and author of And Justice for Some. Let me start with you, Richard. I have heard you quoted saying in 32 years you've never seen anything as bad as this.
Glenn, I've seen almost everything unimaginable that people can do to other human beings, and I've never seen anything such as this. It makes your throat swell up. It makes you have such emotion. That Ashley is the victim here. She's 18 years old, and she does have a disability. She begged him not to strike her in the head. She had brain surgery approximately 5 years before that, so they struck her in the head. They made her stand in the shower, fully clothed, and with her hands tied behind her back, then made her go outside barefooted. The temperature here was freezing at that time. There's some other things that I can't discuss on the air because it could jeopardize the case. But this went on for several hours. And on top of all that, Glenn, they had no remorse whatsoever. None.
These two that did this, it's not two boys that did it. It is a boyfriend and girlfriend, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And do they not have a 2-month-old baby themselves?
They have a 2-month-old child themselves. It's probably the best thing for the child that they not raise the child. Who knows what would happen with that child if these two... It's so unusual for two people from a different family to end up... Usually in something like this, one person would have sympathy and say, please don't do this. We need to stop this. This isn't right. Both of them continued and went on with this rampage for hours.
Before I get to you, Sheriff, what are they charged with?
They're charged with aggravated burglary, felony 1, aggravated robbery, felony 1, kidnapping, felony 1, felonious assault, felony 2, vandalism, felony 5. They're in juvenile detention at this time, and they had a hearing today. They got a guardian assigned to the both of them, and they also got their attorneys today.
Okay.
We have another hearing in April to help, hopefully, that they can be tried as adults.
I have to tell you something, America. I'm not allowed to say their name because the court said that you can no longer say their name. April 1st, if they're tried as adults, I'm going to put their face and their name on television like you wouldn't believe. These people are despicable human beings. Wendy, in Ohio, you actually have to go to court and prove to the court that they should be tried as adults and not juvenile. Any doubt in your mind that that's going to be able to be pulled off here in this case?
No. I mean, what's really unfortunate here, Glenn, is that Ohio has a bit backward compared to the trend in the rest of the country, which is that for this aged group of juveniles, they're very close to adults. They've got records. This crime is the most heinous for that category of juvenile. You should start off in adult court, and in some states, they let the juveniles try to prove that they should be bumped back down to juvenile court, which, by the way, would also never happen in a case like this. Ohio should not have to bear the expense, taxpayer expense, of having to prove that this case deserves to be in adult court.
I have to tell you, I have 3 daughters myself, and I have a daughter of special needs, and I can't tell you what animals it would take to do something like this. Why should we even consider giving these people a second chance. I don't care how young you are. You strike out.
Hey, Glenn,
yes,
these
sir.
people had no remorse whatsoever.
Why do you say that? Give me the example of what did they say to you, or?
Well, there was an example. There was a dog in the house. They wanted to lock the dog up and put it in its kennel because they told my investigators that they didn't want to get a cruelty to animal charge against them. Remember that they struck this young lady in the head several times, and she asked them not to. And they tied her up, and they took her from room to room. And I'll tell you what, Ashley's her name, and what a trooper she is. I met her 2 days ago, and it's a very emotional case. It's emotional even to talk about it as we speak. And I've seen almost everything.
Wendy, real quick, is there a way that we can at least get this 2-year-old or this 2-month-old out of these diabolical hands?
I think there's no question they're going to lose custody. Look, you know, for a long time we had this presumption of rehabilitation if you were a juvenile. That was a disaster. We have younger people than ever before committing more horrific crimes than ever before in this country because for too long we said, let's try to rehabilitate and fix them. Some people, Glenn, are not fixable.
Yeah, well, they are fixable in one way, and they should, both of them, be fixed, and then they should spend the rest of their life in jail. Sheriff, Wendy, thanks. Back in a minute.